Hey there, welcome to the UkeStuff channel and welcome to this UkeGuide review of this instrument. This is the Flight Iris Concert DB or Dark Blue Ukulele. It came out a while ago. I've had it for some time and just haven't reviewed it yet. So this is my opportunity to review this instrument. If you haven't seen it, there was a trend a couple of years ago where a number of companies, starting with Inui, really, Pick a Pick joined in on it, Ortega, I believe, has one, Flight has one too, of a painted solid top with a pick guard, and then a laminate body, and then Flight has a couple of other things that they've thrown into their particular package. As usual, Flight includes a gig bag. It's a decent gig bag, about 10 millimeters of padding. It does have the hanging hook. It does have two shoulder straps. It does not have a bumper on the bottom. It has a longer pocket, not a smaller square one, and about 10 millimeters of padding is what I would guess in that bag, and that's included with your purchase of the instrument. What we're going to do in this review is we'll look at some subjective categories that we look at with all ukuleles. Then I'll go over the specifications, then I'll summarize the instrument and give it a UkeGuide rating out of 5 possible ukuleles. Now, with that all said, I do have to mention that I do some part-time work with Flight Ukulele as an educational consultant. I do some customer service support for them. And as such, I have a positive relationship with Flight. Flight did not send me this for review purposes. I bought it, but was allowed to buy it at dealer pricing. So it wasn't free. I did buy it, but I do have a relationship with Flight. So do keep that in mind as you watch this review. All right. Also, if you want to support the work on this channel, there are 3 things you can do. First of all, you can like this video. Second, you can subscribe to this channel. And third, you can always buy me a cup of coffee to say thank you for making this content at www.buymeacoffee.com/UkeStuff. All right, let's jump into the subjective categories. First of all, cost, $165 for the ukulele and the gig bag. In terms of value, I think you're getting the value. I think you're getting the price meeting the value with this instrument. Other instruments made by other companies that cost significantly more, I don't think you're getting the value that you do here. The price is meeting the value exactly. The build quality looks very good overall. Just checking things out. No flaws in the instrument. If you buy a new Iris and a newer shipment of Iris, and they've been out for a while, they now send the pickguard separately so that you can attach it yourself rather than attaching it at the factory. So do be aware of that. And there is a little plastic layer protective on top of the pickguard as well. I have not peeled that off yet, but it is there. So when you get your pickguard, if you don't think it's as shiny as it should be, you actually can just peel off that top layer of plastic and have access to that. So other than that, the build quality here seems to be really good. Let's take a look at the inside of the instrument. What I do is I take a look at the inside of the instrument with an endoscope. I call it the internal Uke Cam. It's nothing special, just recording what I'm seeing on my iPad and then just uploading that in the video. But it allows you to see how carefully the instrument was created on the inside. It doesn't mean an instrument is good or bad, but it does show care in the construction. So let's take a look at the lower bout, looking down the ukulele here. And you can see the tail block. You can see it's a high quality laminate used in the back and sides. High quality laminate has a much different appearance, and there's that spruce top that you can't see from the outside. You have a bridge support plate. It is the tie bar bridge, so there's nothing popping through. There's a support brace down the middle. There's a brace on the back, and just overall a really clean build, notch kerfing, tail block. And it does have a strap button that you can see the hole is drilled through for that in the tail block as well. All right, let's look at the upper bout. Now with the upper bout, I can never fully see as far back as I'd like to. You can see that the neck is screwed into the neck block right there with that connector. You have notch kerfing there, the high quality laminate, your neck block again. And the only thing to be aware of is with that screw in there, if you're going to put in a second strap button, as I have on my instrument, you got to make sure that you don't hit that screw right there. And just so you're aware, that screw is not a truss rod. It's just a screw, which along, I believe, with glue, helps hold the neck to the body. And that's our quick look at the inside of the Flight Iris Concert DB. So the build quality looks very good. The appearance, well, this is sort of for you to decide. Overall, the idea is pretty plain. A painted spruce top, but there are some extra things here, aren't there? You've got a slotted headstock with a gloss. You have offset front position markers. You do have the pick guard. You do have the paint. You do have the rosette, an abalone rosette in there. You do have bindings. You do have a slightly different shaped bridge. All of that is good. So it's not plain. It's based on a plain idea, but Flight has really thrown in a few other things with its iteration of, or this idea of what a painted spruce top with a laminate back and sides should be. In terms of availability, I believe that you can order these right now. For example, in the US, you can order them from a Flight dealer or the Flight Distributors Reverb store, which you can find on Reverb as well. In terms of playability, got a couple conflicting things happening. It's not bad. There's nothing really terrible here. It's a 36 plus millimeter nut, but the string spacing is standard 35 millimeter nut. So the extra space on the nut really doesn't add anything to the playability of the instrument. The action is really good at the first fret. It's kind of high at the 12th fret, but I would rather err on that side. Now, ultimately, I'd like to have the action set up correctly at both, but I am willing to give a little more leeway. So the action should be like 2.65 ideally. It's just above 3 millimeters, really close to just, what you'd expect, but the action is spot on at the first fret. So it makes it really easy to play up here. And my guess is that a lot of beginning players would be tempted by this instrument. Not to say that intermediate or advanced players wouldn't as well, because, it's a good sounding, good playing, inexpensive overall ukulele with a solid spruce top. So I can see more than beginners being interested in it, but this will definitely appeal to beginners, and having low action at that first fret is so critical for their success early on. So I like that a lot. Now you still have a deep C-shaped neck, and if you've watched this channel, you know that I prefer a D-shaped neck, a little bit more shallow, not as rounded like half of a baseball bat, but that is status quo for most imported ukuleles. I wish we could change that and change the CNC files, because today all these necks are cut out on a CNC. It's time to just change and update that file for all the companies. Just change the profile of that neck, make them all just a little thinner and more D-shaped. Everybody would benefit from that. The other thing that I would say is there's no buzzing on the instrument, but the instrument has semi-hemispherical fret ends. So if you can see that on the screen, every fret end is rounded. And that is a more recent trend on ukuleles just over the last couple of years. Now, it's probably nothing new, but for so long we've dealt with cut fret ends. And then when fretboards shrink, these fret ends pop out and they're sharp and they hurt and you need to sand them down. Well, when you have a rounded fret end, they are set in off the edges. So if you can see, there's actually space. So there's not a binding there really on the fretboard. It's just the fretboard itself, but it's cut exactly, again, CNC, for that particular size of fret. And then they're just inserted and leveled, and then you never have a sharp fret end sticking out. And that is going to impact playability favorably as well. Now, in terms of sound quality, I need to tune this up again because I was putting the little endoscope in there and pulling strings out of tune as I was moving the camera around. What I've noticed is that this instrument doesn't have any particular harmonic or anything that sticks out, but it has a number of harmonics that sound, and it shimmers. I'll see if I can let you hear that. I've got a high frequency shimmer because more than one harmonic are coming out equally. Now, right now, I'm hearing a high G harmonic. In other settings, I've just heard the shimmer, so I'll do it again. That time it was more balanced. So what I'm hearing is the harmonics interacting with each other in the sound. I'm hearing decent sustain. 2, 3, 4, 5. About 5 seconds of sustain, and overall a balanced tone that does lead towards the bright end because, again, it's a spruce instrument. Now, it would be interesting to try this out with, for example, Worth Browns, which tend to be a little more mellow, and to hear what that would do with the sound as well. Might be worth trying. In terms of volume, it's not super loud, but it does have some punch. It does have some volume. And the tone, again, is slightly more bright than dark, but it is overall balanced. Another thing I do in these videos is I let you see what I'm hearing by playing the instrument into the app Tonal Energy Tuner. In a GCA instrument, I usually will play the C chord because it's mostly open, and you can see what's happening with the sound distribution there, the harmonic energy across the spectrum. So here we go. Now, I'll be honest, that time Tonal Energy wasn't very kind to this instrument. You could see the full spectrum, but it faded away very quickly. But it rings longer than that. I can hear it in my ear as I'm playing it. So Tonal Energy Tuner is not picking up the full ring of that instrument, and that's okay. That's going to happen sometime. You're going to see exactly what Tonal Energy is telling you, and you can see how, again, you get that full spectrum for a while. It doesn't really show the high-end ring. It shows the lower end and then just disappears. It lasts a little bit longer, and there is that shimmer with the harmonics on this instrument. All right, now that we've talked about the subjective categories, let's get into the specifications. It is a concert ukulele with a measured scale length of 15.125 inches from the nut to the saddle, so just a touch longer than 15 inches. It has 19 frets with 14 to the body. There are side position markers, and the body style is a double bout with that pickguard. That's going to be the real eye-catching thing on this instrument. The soundboard is solid spruce, as you saw on the camera underneath, so it's a solid spruce top underneath this painted soundboard. Its back and sides are laminate mahogany. The fretboard is rosewood, as is the bridge, and it is a tie bar bridge. The fretboard is not a raised fretboard, but again, it does have those semi-hemispherical fret ends, which is great. Fretboard is not radius. The nut and saddle are bone, and the saddle is compensated. So you can see how, for example, like the C string and the E string are cut away to allow those thicker strings to have a little more vibrating room along the length of the instrument, even in that short space of the top of the saddle. The finish, you have a painted top, which is a matte paint, along with a satin back and sides. The overall length is 23.9375 inches from the top of the headstock to the bottom of the instrument, not counting the strap button. And it weighs 1 pound, 3.0 ounces, and is actually pretty well balanced for a slotted headstock ukulele. There are Derjung rear-facing tuners on the instrument. They work great. The action at the first fret is a very low 0.20 millimeters, while the action at the 12th fret is 3.15 millimeters. That's a touch higher than I'd like to see. Usually I like to see below 3, ideally starting at 2.65. Some people like it lower than that, down to 2. Somewhere between the 2 and 3 range, it's just a touch out of spec. However, because the action is so low up here, where a beginner would be playing, this part isn't going to mess them up that much between that 0.5 of a millimeter. The nut width is 35.9 millimeters, so 36 millimeters. But here's one of the negatives, is that the string spacing is that of a standard 35 millimeter instrument. So it's 8.7 millimeters between each string at the first fret, or 28.9 G to A. So it's pretty standard spacing. The wider nut doesn't really take advantage of string spacing. And then finally, the depth of the neck at the 3rd fret, which tells you how chunky really the neck is. It's 22.0 millimeters, which is pretty significant from the top of the strings to the bottom of the neck, especially with such low action at the 1st fret. So again, I'm not a big fan of deep C-shaped necks, and I'd like to see a more D profile on pretty much every ukulele. Those are the specifications. Let's get into the summary and a UkeGuide rating. Again, I do some part-time work with Flight. So with that in mind, this instrument was not sent to me for reviews. I was allowed to buy it at basically dealer pricing. I did buy it. That said, keep in mind, I do have a relationship with Flight. I work with Flight. And as such, as I review the instrument, make sure in your own mind that I'm being honest with you and not just saying nice things with Flight because I like Flight. Fair enough? All right, let's go on with the summary. I purchased this one some time ago and I haven't reviewed it yet. It comes with the instrument and pretty much the kind of gig bag that you would need. The instrument really does pay tribute to the Anue color series, which is very similar in a lot of ways, but Flight has done their own things to their model. And there's a number of companies that are selling a painted top with a pickguard. Not only Anue, you've got Flight that has something like that. Calla probably has something like that. Pick-a-Pick has something like that. I think Winds I've seen has something like that. Ortega has something like that. It has become sort of a trend. Now, this instrument has been out for a while, so there's nothing new and stellar about this, but when they came out, people really loved the idea of a pickguard. And yes, potentially you could then move to playing with a pick, maybe, if you wanted to, like a plastic pick. You can play the leather pick or felt pick, but generally plastic picks can destroy ukuleles. That might stop it with the pickguard. Just an option. So anyway, what did Flight do to make it flightized in its own version of the painted top ukulele? Well, different pickguard, different shape. You've got an offset dots on your fretboard. You have a slotted headstock, which is a little different. And I think that's pretty much it. That kind of defines it as being slightly different than the other models made by the other companies. And one of the things we haven't talked about already in this video, and I should have, is that the bracing, the vertical bracing or horizontal bracing, has holes in it that is sort of like Kanalea's truer bracing to reduce the amount of mass or weight of the instrument, but to still allow for the instrument to have the support that it needs to vibrate freely, but have support it needs without the weight. So it does have that in certain parts of the ukulele. You can see the holes there. So that's kind of a neat feature as well. Now, if you buy one of these today, if it's one of the newer Irises for quite some time, the pickguard will not be attached. And that's to your benefit, because then if you want to put the pickguard on, you can. If you don't have to. If you buy your own Iris today, you get to choose whether you put that on or leave it off. The sound here is pretty much what you'd expect for this sort of instrument, and actually it did win some awards. For example, I believe Anarchy and the Ukulele, their Ukes, this was the instrument of a year, like in 2024 perhaps, something like that. So this instrument has received some rewards. It has good sound. I think it has this neat shimmer because the harmonics interact with each other. The action is low at the nut, a little high at the 12th, but it is definitely playable, and with the low action at the top, much better for a beginner. The action at the 12th is just on the edge of almost being too high. So is it terrible? No, but I also don't want to lower it because your action is already so low at the first fret. And finally, in terms of price and value, I think you're getting exactly what you're paying for here. So at $165, that's spot on for what you'd expect for a good instrument with a gig bag, sounds well, plays well, looks kind of neat, seems to be a very good thing. So what rating would I give this one? I would give this one a 4.5 out of 5. What would make it better? Really, quite honestly, would only be the setup and maybe, again, a thinner neck. But the neck thing is just a wish of mine. The setup thing is something that could be addressed a little bit, making sure that the action stays under 3 at the 12th fret. Other than that, kind of neat. I did have one other thought too, which is perhaps if you have this gloss headstock, they could make a gloss body version as well, and that those gloss could work together rather than gloss, matte, satin, and I think sort of glossy once you take off that top layer on top of the pickguard there. So that's another idea that I had, is perhaps the gloss and gloss would be nice too. But as it is, kind of a neat instrument. Glad that I've had the chance to buy it and review it for you here. So thank you so much for joining me for this video. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll be back soon with some more Uke stuff for you.